Good morning, and welcome to our backpack episode on researching companies. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Mike Wolber, who I will introduce in a moment. My name is Valerie Reese, and I'm a career coach here at the Huntsman School of Business. We created the Backpack to Briefcase series as a way for students to learn how to prepare and accelerate their careers with industry professionals such as Mike. For those of you who are joining live, please leave your comments and chats or your comments and questions in the chat, and we'll check those during the discussion. And I will now introduce Mike and let him take the time he needs to address this important topic for our students. Mike is currently the Chief Revenue Officer at Rent Dynamics, a multi-family technology company where he oversees the holistic go-to marketing strategy. His background includes 5 years of marketing and technology leadership at Nike, right? Did I get that part right?
Got it right.
As well as 8 years of market, as well as 8 years of go-to-market leadership in multifamily. He is also a podcast host, a board member, and an avid consumer of sales and of the latest sales and marketing trends. So please join me again in welcoming Mike, and we'll let you take the time.
Thank you so much. What an introduction. I need to shorten that up going forward. Well, thanks a ton for having me. Really excited about today's talk. And if you're listening live or after the fact, I would love questions. Like, one of my favorite things about talking with folks that are early or late in their careers is being able to cater the conversation to them. So please blow me up with questions. And my talk today is really going to be focused on my personal journey from entry level to executive in 10 years, and some really core learnings that I believe are widely transferable. And so we'll really spend some time talking tactically, but also strategically about what that journey and experiences look like, and finding companies and designing a career plan that I've been really proud of. So Valerie said it better than I could. My name is Mike, and I'm currently the CRO here at Rent Dynamics in Cache Valley. So I'm local in Logan. And I want to just walk through my career story to really explain learnings that I have gleaned along the way. I've definitely scraped my knees a lot in the last 12 years, and hopefully share some insight that you can use to hack your way to a much better and more successful career story. So I wanted to start with the visual to really showcase something that I believe you've surely heard of this on your own. On the left-hand side of your screen, you can see what most people think a career or what success looks like. And again, success is going to be up to you. What's your definition of success? They think it's somewhat linear. You started a company, you get a promotion, you get another promotion, you get a big payday, another company recruits you, and it's just high and to the right for your career. In my experience, and in talking to a lot of people that are, early, mid, or late stage in their career, most people's path to success, again, their own definition of success, looks much more like this visual on the right. It is squiggly. It is high. It is low. There are ebbs. There are flows. And I hope that my experience aligns with what's on the right. And I hope that's a positive for you today. It has not been what I thought it would be, but it also has absolutely exceeded my wildest dreams and expectations. And so I'm coming to you with optimism, but also hopefully a sense of realism as what it's looked like to really approach and design a career. So I'll start back at the very beginning where it all began. I graduated university in 2010. And my plan was to work for UPS and to long-term head back to Alaska where I grew up, and to join my dad and take over his real estate business. He, to this day, is still the number one broker in Anchorage, Alaska. And I was going to do UPS as a fun summer job, good pay, wear the short shorts, and have some fun before getting serious with my career. And about 3 weeks before graduating in May, our business school got an opportunity to go interview for a role at Nike. And we were told there were 2 opportunities, and every one of the business graduates raised their hand and said, yes, we want an opportunity. So 130 of us shuttled out over the course of a week to interview at Nike. And we were able to dress for success. We had an hour in a boardroom with a couple mid-level executives. And I was really fortunate to be one of the two that landed the job. So my plans changed. I went out and got an apartment in Hillsboro, right near the world headquarters of Nike, and said yes to an opportunity. And 2 weeks after graduating, I had a badge and was walking into the Nike world headquarters. And you talk about perspective change. It was pretty cool. A couple things about like the early days at Nike for me is one, like brute honesty. My first job really, really stunk. It was the epitome of black and white drag and drop data entry, and I did not like the work. And one of the first learnings in my career came from that realization that I did not like the job that I was in. And I made that clear to my manager. I, in a very positive and constructive way, said, this work is not stimulating me. I don't think you're getting, the best of Mike. What does it look like to outperform and have an opportunity to do something more creative? And it was my first realization that if you outwork and align yourself to your management's, goals, that you can fast path your career. Within 3 months, I was promoted into a new position. I was a full-time category analyst, and I found work that I absolutely enjoyed. I was sitting in product creation. I was able to meet some of the biggest athletes. You name a name, I've probably been able to see them in person. And I was helping product creation, design products, launch products, and I was the systems person that sat in the epicenter of product. It was very fun. And over the course of the next 5 years, I was promoted 5 times and made more money, had more opportunity. I was really fortunate to meet my wife at Nike, my very first month on the job. And so in a lot of ways, Nike set the tone for my career. Near the end of my 5 years, though, at Nike, I was starting to have this perspective shift. I was young, I was about 25, 26 years old, and I was doing good work that I was proud of, but I was not necessarily making a material impact to the business. I was never going to change the course of Nike. It's Nike, $36 billion in revenue, 35,000 global employees at the time. And I really wanted to do something that was going to have a bigger impact on a company, have an opportunity to go faster and further in my career. And another kind of inflection point for me was I ended up in a position that I'd been promoted into that I was not great at. It was good pay. It was a great title, but I was not meeting expectations, and started like really kind of going to the well, figuratively speaking, and thinking through what does next look like. So made a big decision with my wife to move to Bend, Oregon. We'd always wanted to be there. It's where we'd gotten married. And that's where my first time going through a proper job search began, where I decided to kind of change my circumstances. And that's how I ended up in my next employer. So a couple key lessons from Nike that I think are widely applicable. Don't default to saying yes when a promotion is offered to you. That's controversial, especially as a student. Like, you're definitely thinking about, how do I fast path my career? Sometimes what the business wants from you is not necessarily what's going to be great for you. So really encourage you to be eyes wide open as it relates to stepping into your next opportunity. And it's okay to not be a good fit for a role. And I think being able to acknowledge that out loud, like I did at my very first role that I was technically miserable in, it's okay as long as you handle that with a polished, constructive, and professional voice. The second thing is that storytelling is a career-changing skill set. And I like to call this a skill set, not a strength, because skills are things you can develop. You can become a storyteller. At Nike, I watched the most prominent executives tell stories on stage, introducing new products, new athletes, and the people that could be the most compelling in telling the most profound story were typically the people that had the most opportunity. And it was really something I studied during my 5 years at Nike. How do I become an eloquent communicator? How do I learn how to be compelling with words? How do I learn to bring people along with ideas? And storytelling is definitely something that's transcended my career. And I'd encourage you to think through that, whether it's through podcasting, TED Talks, or just practicing on your own. And the second thing is that change is hard, but it's the hardest the first time. When I left Nike, my family was screaming at me, don't leave Nike. Nike is this world-class company. Why would you ever go to a small technology company that might not even be around in a couple of years? And the first time I went through a career change, it was certainly nerve-wracking, like probably to say the least. But going through it once, I feel like I gained durability, I gained perspective. I obviously learned a lot, and it's never going to be as hard as it was to make change that very first time. So I hope that resonates. So let's move on to chapter 2. So my career really took off when I left Nike and joined a early stage technology company called G5. G5 was and still is a company focused on the multifamily space. So think apartments, creating digital marketing technologies to help apartments remain fully occupied. So websites and advertising, all sorts of really fun stuff. I'm going to grab a drink really quick. And a couple things that happened for me during the second chapter. I took a pretty big pay cut when I left Nike to join G5. And that was the first thing that certainly made my family pause. And I believed in the long-term vision of the company. So it was something that was worth taking a marginal 10% cut in pay, knowing that there was this big opportunity to be part of a growth business. The second thing is that I was not qualified for that first job. I had never been in sales. I had never been client facing. I had never done presentations to future customers. And that was like all of the things that were on this job description for a sales engineer. And I learned that if you storytell, you can be qualified for a lot of positions. I connected the dots. Hey, I've never been in sales before, but I've had to sell my point of view. Hey, I've never had to give presentations to future customers, but I've given presentations to executives and partners. And I created a pathway, if you will, into being qualified for the position through thinking creatively, storytelling, being honest, and connecting the dots. And that was a huge learning for me, and being able to get my foot in the door into a company and a role that I was really keen on being part of. Part of not being qualified meant that I had a lot to learn. I had a lot to learn about being a salesman. I had a lot to learn about being able to be compelling when it came to presenting and getting people to say yes to buying from our business. And so I really embraced a practice of practicing daily. Never practice in front of your customers. Practice internally. I was doing sales demos in bed with my wife at night. I was practicing during my commutes into the office using my voice recorder, just practicing my intro to see if it would sound awkward to say, hey, I'm Mike Wolber and this is what I do. And practice and repetition, just like if you're an athlete, really helps. I also had the same trajectory at Nike, at G5 that I had at Nike. I received 5 promotions in 5 years. And I say that not to be braggadocious, but to say that doing the things that I've talked about did certainly play a role in what the trajectory looked like here at G5. And a couple of those were really strategic, and a couple of those were right place at right time. Understanding the objections or objectives of the business at the very senior leadership level is easy to do at a technology company. Revenue, sales bookings, client retention, and all those kinds of things made it, opportunistic for me to be in the right place, be doing the right work, and be someone who could realize a great career path. And the outcome of G5 is that I built such a reputation for myself personally in a smaller industry that I actually got recruited to join my next company. So I didn't seek Rent Dynamics. Rent Dynamics sought me, and it was such a beautiful fit, which is how I ended up here in Cache Valley. So a couple lessons from G5. And Nate, thank you. I love that you enjoy that quote. I think that mindset's really powerful in terms of the storytelling. First lesson is you can storytell your way into a job. You've got to be able to be capable. You've got to have aptitude. Those are all things that any hiring manager is looking for today. I've hired hundreds of positions in my career, but everyone's looking for someone who's thinking big and demonstrating that they understand the role. So print out the job that you're looking for, and then map your experience and your stories and come up with a way that you can be the right fit. The second thing is network. I had no connection to G5, and I did not want to be a number when I submitted my application. So I used LinkedIn for the first time to go get active. I reached out to people that were in the business, had some informational phone calls, asked if they'd be open to introduce me to the hiring manager. And those kinds of things played a massive role in standing out. In today's day and age, roles receive hundreds of applicants. And in order to not be a number, you've got to do something in order to get that connection. Otherwise, you just run the risk. Will they look at you or not? So networking is a superpower, and it's something I deeply believe in. I talked about, that practice mentality. You think about the difference between a know-it-all and a learn-it-all. And I really tried to become a learn-it-all during my time at G5, always learning. Be a sponge. That was one of the core values at Nike that still to this day drives my career. Be a sponge, learn, remember, acquire knowledge, give knowledge. And there's something great that comes along with being someone that's always learning because they have something to say in the workplace. Mentors has definitely been a hack for me in my career. And one of my lessons would be seek mentors, but it would also be to acknowledge that your mentors are going to change based on the stage that you're at in your career. In an entry-level position versus a mid-level or senior-level position, the type of company, the types of mentors that you need are going to change, and that's okay. But my advice would be find a mentor who's one or two steps ahead of you in your career and try to glean knowledge from them. What did they do? What would they do differently? And I think this curriculum that USU's put together is a great way to go do that. But mentors are really, really powerful. Two last lessons. One is build a personal brand. To me, your personal brand is your reputation. When someone hears your name or thinks about your name, same thing would go with your company. What do they think about? And the more you can build that personal brand now, the better off you're going to be long term. That's how you get a reference. That's how you get a referral. That's how you get the opportunity to be recruited or to be the application that gets picked out. So the more you can do there, the better. And I believe that LinkedIn is a great place to start. And then finally, I'd encourage you to play the long game in your career. Taking a comp cut, a cut to your compensation can be a really big deal. But I took a comp cut when I joined G5, and my compensation was over 4 times higher five years later than what it was at Nike. So playing that long game, thinking long term, both with compensation, title, opportunity, both short and long term. A long-term mindset is a really great way to have a radically positive career, in my opinion. So chapter 3, I call this accelerating growth. I joined Rent Dynamics in December of 2020. I selected Rent Dynamics for the right reasons. I believed deeply in the mission and the company. And I also really aligned with the vision for the company long term. It was a smaller company than G5, but I saw an opportunity to take this company to just like the massive levels. And so a couple cool things that happened. My family and I'm married with 2 great kids. We relocated during COVID. There's no playbook for how you move your family and build a house during COVID-19, but we did it. We believed that my best opportunity to make an impact would be to be all in and to be hands-on and to put my hands and fingers all over the business. So we moved to Logan, and it's really, really worked. Being here in person, being able to hire and coach and train and develop, it's been so worthwhile. I did take another pay cut when I left G5. So again, thinking long-term, not short-term. I do think when you're finding a role, entry level or mid-level, it's really important that you align yourself to the company, whether it's the mission of the company, the culture of the company, the overarching vision of the company. And there's a lot of ways you can go get informed on that today. You can spend time networking with people. You can understand average tenure. Our company's attracting and retaining talent for more than just a couple of years, or you've seen a lot of people that are gone after just a year. There are a lot of ways you can go find that out on your own. This was also the first time I really felt like I took a bet on myself. Was I ready to go be an executive with managers responsible for an entire division of a company? And the realization is that, yes, I was, and it's absolutely paying off. Playing the long game and taking that bet has definitely been worthwhile. And I'm very, very happy to be at Rent Dynamics. And I hope to be here for a very long time. And the lessons I'll share from Rent Dynamics is that really good things happen when you design yourself out of your job. That's contrarian advice to what a lot of people, I think, grow up thinking about, which is you want to be good at everything. You want to be someone that everyone needs. My biggest belief has been that if I design myself out of a position, if I help everyone around me get better, my next job is going to be calling for me because people saw that I was able to be a bar raiser and to level other people up. And I got that advice from a mentor. So again, the power of mentorship. But by designing myself out of a position and being a great sales leader at G5, Rent Dynamics saw an opportunity for me that turned into a career changing opportunity. Trusting your gut is important. It's important that the data makes sense, that the dots connect when you're making a career change, whether it's a role promotion or a company change. But gut is important too. I think outside looking in, Rent Dynamics was a little small. It was far away. It was living in Utah for the first time, but I believed that this was going to be the right opportunity, and it's certainly been the right move. And then the last two for me is going all in is a really great way to, put your whole self towards the opportunity. So for me, it was a relocation. It was relocating my family who never wanted to leave Bend. Your version of all in could be going all in the interview process or doing something different that makes you feel uncomfortable, whether that's how you talk about the work on social media or whatever it might be. But going all in is something that figuratively I like to think about a lot. And then finally, building in public. I believe deeply that LinkedIn is a great way to stand out as a candidate. And as you're learning, whether it's right now in your interview and application process or down the road when you're designing a business, share what you're doing in public on LinkedIn, on Twitter, whatever it might be. And it's a great way to attract and build an audience that's going to come with you for all of your future roles and all of your future companies. And LinkedIn can play a big role in your success at getting a seat at the table, whether it's for the application or for that promotion. So some closing thoughts, and I hope this hasn't been too verbose for everybody today. Highly encourage you to find energy in your career. We spend way too much at work comparatively to the time we spend at home to be drained by the workplace. My favorite exercise is to keep a notebook, left page energy, right page drain, and take note of the things at work that give you energy and find more and more of that as you design your career. Second thing is to play the long game, think long term. Taking a job change or a company change for a small compensation increase may or may not be worthwhile in the long term. And so really think through, where do I want to be in 5 years, 10 years? And that level of perspective will really impact you. Your career goals will evolve. When I was at Nike, I wanted to be a VP. I really wanted to be a VP of product in 2010, 2011, and 2012. I never wanted to be in the chair that I'm in today. Now my goals are wildly different, and it's okay for your career aspirations to evolve. They absolutely should as you mature and as your perspective changes. Another thought is that there's room in the workplace for generalists as well as experts and specialists. What I mean by that is whether you're in a hard skill degree like SQL development or more of a generalist degree like marketing or communications, the workplace needs and loves both. So use your skills, use your energy, and make sure you find work that gives you joy. I truly, truly believe that. And I'll end with the thought that work should be fun. At the end of the day, what you're doing matters, but being content and being satisfied is so important when it comes to work. There's a lot of energy to be found, a lot of joy to be found in the workplace, and I highly encourage you to go find it. I hope today's been helpful. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn, so I'd love for you guys to type in Mike Wolber and connect with me. Ask me questions. I'd love to connect with you offline. And I'll include my email here as well if anyone ever wants to ask me questions tied to Rent Dynamics specifically. Mike.Wolber@rentdynamics.com is how you can find me. And I hope today's been helpful. Are you muted, Valerie?
Thank you. You think after all of these years, right? I wanted to thank you so much for sharing your time with us and your expertise, and really, in the brief time I've been able to connect with you on LinkedIn, you really do a fantastic job of being public and sharing what you're doing. And that's been impactful for me already, as I mentioned earlier to you. And you mentioned a lot of key things we talk with our students about finding mentoring, networking, really utilizing LinkedIn for that networking and branding. And as Nate pointed out, that storytelling component as well. We do have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
Um, Going along the lines of networking, what tips would you have for somebody who may be introverted in reaching out with that?
Yeah, the first time is the hardest. I'd say that like I'm an ambivert. I find a lot of energy when I'm in public. I'm a salesman. I have to be able to shake hands and say hello, but I also really need mic time in order to recharge. My advice here would be, be discreet, be one on one. Send someone a connection request and send someone a DM and personalize the heck out of it. Hey Valerie, I love what you're doing at Utah State. Looking to relocate. Can I spend 15 minutes with you and just learn how you made that transition? And once you get through it the first time, you'll really see that the next time becomes easier and it becomes a habit of success. But that would be my biggest advice: is just start small.
Excellent, good. And kind of going along those lines, something I feel that you said was really key is building skills to develop that storytelling ability. And you mentioned like TED Talks and podcasts. Are there specific ones you would recommend?
Absolutely. In order to become good, you have to consume good. And I think there are a lot of ways that you can improve and develop the storytelling and verbal articulation skill set. One is to learn. Reading is a great way to learn. I love the aspects of books like Pitch Anything, where they teach you specifically how to use tactics to get a clear point of view across. I also love to consume good content. I look at Steve Jobs, one of the world's best storytellers. If anyone goes back and looks in the '07 video of him sharing the iPod for the first time, you come up with so many ideas of how you could use those same storytelling tactics in your day-to-day life. So I would say find a couple pieces of inspiration, and then TED Talks or master classes are all really good examples of places you can go, skim good content and become better daily. And I think that's kind of the best advice I'd have.
Perfect. And one other question I have for you that I would like you to share with our students is I mentioned in your introduction that you are a podcast host. Would you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Yeah, for sure. I run a podcast called Modern Multifamily, and it's all about the multifamily industry, since that's really where my career is emphasized. I talk with leaders across the industry, both on the technology as well as on the ownership side, about what they're challenged with, what they're doing to move their businesses forward. And it's been one of the many ways that I've invested in personal branding, company branding, but also learning how to be a better storyteller. When I look back at my first episode in January of 21, it like hurts my ears. Whereas today it's like fluid, and 2 years later, I'm sure today's won't sound that great. And even if the podcast space feels crowded, starting something that's been my own has been a really great way to go build. And so it's also been a great way to learn. But it's called Modern Multifamily. Spotify, Apple, we pushed all syndications, and would love if anyone ever tunes in to your feedback that's constructive or critical. I'm always trying to improve it.
Fantastic, wonderful. And we have just a couple of announcements before we leave for our students. We have our virtual mock interview day coming up on Friday, February 10th from 9 a.m. to noon. Students will need to sign up, register for the event, and then sign up for specific times to meet with our employers. And I think, Mike, we were talking at the beginning, and you're planning to be there as one
Yep.
of the interviewees.
I'll be
Fantastic. Thank you for doing that. So if you'd like a chance to practice interviewing with Mike, he'll be available, as well as there are about 25 to 30 other employers signed up. And to prepare you students for that, we have a drop-in resume reviews at the start desk between EBB and Huntsman Hall. It'll start January 30th and run through February 9th, and we'll have extended hours until 4 p.m. So stop in, make an appointment with us. Let's get your resume polished and uploaded to Handshake so you can have that interview experience with our employers. And that's it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you.